As far as so we got some interesting things going on with the market. I mean, sales are definitely slowing down, but prices for condos were up 16% this past month. They're up year to date 12%. And list to sales price ratio is 100%. So sellers are getting what they're asking for. Days on market's 11 days. So it's still really tight, doing really well. So I looked back. So I looked at houses before. Now I'm looking at condo inventory. We have 964 active condos on the market right now. And the interesting thing, I looked back at that 2005, 2006 market, and at the height of that market, when we had the least amount of inventory on the market for a month at one time, active inventory, we were at 935 units. So we're still right around that, you know, low inventory for the condo side that we saw back in 2005, 2006, which is still, we have 1.5 months of inventory, which basically means very, very tight inventory, and we should continue to see prices going up. So, very little in a market slowdown. I mean, yeah, it's slowing down, but we're still having price appreciation because of the lack of inventory. And I think that kind of highlights it. The interesting thing, you look at Kaka'ako, Ala Moana, which I wanted to see, number of sales are up 29% and prices up 25% this year compared to last year. So that Ala Moana Kaka'ako area is the driver, especially for the second home buyer and the international buyer coming to that area.
That's that this is kind of tracking kind of what we had said earlier, if not even a little bit higher than what we had said. We kind of said, look, the market's not going to quote crash. The market may kind of level off, but it's not quite like Dylan. Go ahead. What's going on the Big Island, Dylan? What's happening? What news do you have for us?
Yeah, so there's definitely a pretty stark and hard market shift that we're seeing in the data now. And so just to give you some perspective, right, is the alarming piece of data that I looked at yesterday was that last July, there was 58 homes that sold in the Kona market. So if I just look at the Kona market, there was 58 homes that sold. As of today, this morning, there was 13 this July. So we got like 8 days left in the month, and we're at 25% of what sold a year ago. And we even had 42 homes sell last month, right? So even if this number doubles, we'd be at 50% the number of homes that normally sell. And we'd attributed that for a long time to the lack of inventory. But the reality is the inventory is rising rapidly. So if we look at last July, there was 1,300 homes in the market, or 1,300 properties in the market. There's about 1,900 today. So there's inventory has been rising about 100 units every month over the last 2 months. And it's indicative of the whole entire island market also, where last year you had 250 homes sell across the island, and we're at 111 right now. So we're at less than half with just a week and a couple of days left in the month. So very much slowdown in terms of activity. We're not seeing, like Scott said, we're not seeing a drop in prices or days on market or anything yet. But definitely, there's going to be a balancing out pretty quickly with the inventory quickly on the rise and the number of homes selling quickly on the decline. The good news is, I've been telling everybody, it's a great time to be a buyer right now. It's a great time. There's lots of stuff on the market, and sellers are hearing the same bad news, and they're willing to negotiate. So,
that's as soon as you started saying all that, and that's kind of what my thought was like. Okay, if you've been kind of quote waiting for things to kind of level off, this is the time to really start looking and start to kind of hunt stuff around, because as you said, inventory is going up, prices are the activity. That's a pretty significant drop off. How does Dylan, you have to kind of go into any kind of statistical books or whatever, but aside from the last two banana years, what is a normal July? How does 13 compare to, like, let's say a July of, let's say, 2019?
40 to 50 is normally kind of where we're at. Last July was kind of bonkers, so it was like 58, right? But yeah, 40 to 50 homes in our market selling every month is totally normal, consistent.
Okay, so having 13 at this point is a pretty steep drop.
Yeah. But that being said, in the residential market, we're at like 1.2 months of inventory. In a condo market, we're at like 0.6 months of inventory, right? So it's like the inventory is rising, but it's still nowhere near normal levels, where we're normally above 3,000 properties for sale on the Big Island. So we're not even to 2,000 yet. So, and then, like Scott was talking about, I mean, it seems like, it's kind of dramatic, but at the same time, if you put in historical context, we're still in a very low inventory market.
Right. Scott, Did you have a comment? I saw you unmute there for a second.
Yeah, it's interesting because so I went back all the way to 2008 and looked at every year's kind of number of sales because we're obviously slowing down. Where are we going to kind of land this year? And we're actually still going to land in the second for Oahu. This is Oahu. So it's interesting to hear the different perspectives on the islands, but we're going to land at the second highest number of sales since that 2008 timeframe. So the sales for Oahu are still happening and we're still chucking along. We're decelerating, right?
That's really interesting. So it's really, folks, there's a great example, and I think what I want to thank Dylan and Scott and Heidi for being here. It gives this great diversity. There's a pretty, I would say, a fairly radical difference right now at this point in time, this snapshot for July, right? Between the Big Island and Oahu, and Big Island is definitely a place to a good. Hey, let's move on let's get our Maui fix. Heidi, okay? You heard about the market on Oahu, the market on the Big Island. What's kind of going on with Maui's market, Heidi?
Yeah, similar on Maui. There's definitely a market shift taking place right now, and it's it's driven by, of course, the data, the interest rates, the economy, but also all the news stories people are reading and just a shift in the mindset of buyers and sellers. So there's definitely more negotiating going on now than we saw in the past. Our inventory is still very low. Prices are higher, but because some buyers have dropped out of the market, the serious buyers who are in the market now, have a little bit more leverage than in the past. So if you've been on the sidelines, really turned off with the super competitive environment we've been in, things are getting a little better for you as a buyer. But we're not seeing a ton of new inventory. We're still seeing good properties sell quickly and over asking price. Real estate is unique. So, certain properties that are listed, they're not a commodity. We don't have thousands of this one type of condo on this one beach. So, the uniqueness, the desirability, that's still there. And I think I mentioned this in the last show. Owners have a lot of equity in their properties, have a lot of wealth. So I don't see any reason for a ton of new inventory to come on the market soon. I think we're slowly normalizing back to a market it's starting to feel more like 2019 again, which was still a really great market. It's just compared to what we were used to last year, that feels very different.
So interesting. So it sounds like you've got a sort of you're more on the Oahu side of things in terms of market trends. Like you're definitely feeling a shift. There's a market shift. It's a little bit of a better time to buy, but there's still a lot of activities. Things are going for over listing price, which is, indicative. Not quite like where it looks like the Big Island is where the sweet spot could be. If the Big Island was what you're interested in, this is kind of what you want to look into the market. Thanks, Heidi.